welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking into something pretty extraordinary, a hidden geopolitical race centered on, believe it or not, a tiny battery.
That's right. We're talking about a device, maybe the size of a coin, that could potentially last for 50 years. No charging, no replacement.
50 years.
Sure.
And apparently this isn't just lab talk anymore. It's become, well, a quiet battleground between Beijing, Washington, and Moscow.
Exactly. So today we're going to unpack what some are calling the nuclear battery revolution. We'll look at the tech itself, who's actually leading this race, and crucially, the applications, which are, well, they're potentially revolutionary and maybe even a bit dangerous.
Okay, so longevity isn't entirely new in this field, right? I mean, you think about space exploration.
That's the perfect starting point. Think back to the Voyager probes launched way back in '77. They used what are called radioisotope thermal generators, or RTGs, basically using heat from decaying radioactive stuff to make electricity.
And those probes, they're still going.
Still going strong. More than 45 years later, sending signals from the absolute edge of our solar system. It proved, fundamentally, that you can build power sources that last for generations.
So scientists took that idea and thought, how do we shrink this? Bring it down to Earth?
Kind of. But it's important to note these new microbatteries aren't using the exact same RTG tech. They use something different called beta voltaics.
Beta voltaics. Okay, what's the difference there?
It's a key difference. RTGs use the heat from decay. Beta voltaics capture the actual electrons the beta particles emitted during decay and turn those directly into electricity. No heat conversion needed.
So it's a more direct, maybe cooler process.
Exactly. Cleaner, cooler, much more efficient for generating very low levels of power, but over incredibly long durations. That's the trade-off.
And understanding that leads us straight into the current race, because the sources we've looked at suggest China isn't just researching this, they're already making them.
They've really jumped ahead in terms of commercial production. It's quite aggressive. While others are still largely in the research phase, China seems to be scaling up.
So tell us about this specific Chinese battery.
Right. So the company is Betavolt. They've announced the BV100, like you said, coin-sized. And the key claim is it's already in mass production.
Not a prototype.
Not just a lab curiosity. They state it produces 100 microwatts, that's then W, at 3 volts, and will do so continuously for a full 50 years.
Okay, hold on. 100 microwatts. Let's be clear. That's tiny, right? You can't run your phone on that. Not even close.
Absolutely not. You need watts, maybe millions of microwatts, for a phone or even a simple light bulb. So yeah, 100 W sounds almost useless at first glance.
So why the fuss? Why is this potentially geopolitical if the power output is so low?
Because the game here isn't about raw power. It's about permanence and autonomy. That 100 microwatts, while small, is easily enough to power sophisticated sensors, microcontrollers, tiny transmitters, indefinitely.
For half a century?
For half a century. Plus, Betavolt claims these things are incredibly robust. They supposedly operate from -60 all the way up to plus 120 degrees Celsius.
Wow. And they also make claims about safety. No explosions, no fires.
Right, and this next claim is quite something. They say that at the end of its 50-year life, the radioactive isotope decays into stable, harmless copper.
Harmless copper. That sounds almost too good to be true. Is that scientifically verified, or is it more of a marketing claim at this stage?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? It's a huge claim. It will definitely need years of independent, rigorous verification. The idea is they're using specific isotopes with relatively contained decay processes sealed in layers.
But strategically, making that claim up front is clever. It addresses the biggest public fear radioactive waste head-on.
Precisely. They're trying to neutralize that concern from the start. And crucially, our sources indicate this isn't just one company's initiative. It seems to have strong backing from the Chinese government.
Aiming for the whole supply chain.
Looks like it.
Yeah.
From mining the isotopes to manufacturing the final battery, it feels less like just a product launch and more like a national strategy to dominate this future market for long-life precision energy.
Okay, so if China's in mass production, backed by the state, where's the U.S. in all this? The materials suggest, well, lagging.
Lagging is probably fair, at least in terms of commercial scale production. The U.S. situation is complex. The scientific know-how is definitely there. You've got labs, universities.
And companies too, right? I saw mentions.
Oh, yes. Companies like City Labs, for instance, they've developed nuclear batteries using tritium. That's a radioactive form of hydrogen. Their batteries last around 20 years, used in very specific niches like medical implants and defense sensors.
And Kronos Advanced Technologies.
They're another player working with partners, focusing on making these these things smaller and safer, so the capability exists.
What's the holdup? If the tech is there, why isn't the U.S. matching China's production push?
It seems to boil down to a couple of things. First, maybe market focus. U.S. companies have poured resources into lithium-ion for phones, cars that are high-power, big-volume markets.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what else?
The bigger hurdle, according to our sources, is regulation. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, has incredibly strict and, frankly, slow processes for approving anything with radioactive materials for commercial use, even tiny amounts.
The safety protocols, while necessary, create a kind of bureaucratic drag compared to potentially faster state-led pushes elsewhere.
Exactly. It stifles that rapid commercialization we seem to be seeing from Beijing. So catching up for the U.S. isn't just about R&D. It needs a significant political will and maybe a budget allocation to navigate or streamline that regulatory side.
So it's less a tech gap, more a speed-to-market gap, driven by regulation and perhaps strategic focus.
That seems to be the picture.
Now, what about Russia? The outline mentioned them having scientific breakthroughs but not really being commercial players.
Russia's role is fascinating. They appear to be, let's say, scientific contributors, but market observers right now. Scientists, I believe at the Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology, achieved something really quite remarkable.
Oh, was that?
They developed a battery using nickel-63 isotope. Its power output was incredibly small, even smaller than the Betavolt one, just 1 microwatt.
1 microwatt. That's minuscule.
It is, but here's the kicker. Its projected lifespan was 100 years.
A century
Well,
from a tiny battery. That's, wow.
Scientifically, it's stunning, but practically, that achievement seems stuck in research papers. There's little indication Russia has the industrial base or perhaps the state focus right now to turn that lab marvel into a mass-produced, commercially viable product.
So if we were to summarize the race based on our sources.
It looks like China pushing hard on actual production and market strategy. The U.S. strong on research, has some niche products, but playing catch-up on the commercial scale due to regulatory factors. Russia is scientifically advanced in some areas, but commercially sidelined for now.
Okay, let's get back to that power question. 100 microwatts. We established it's not for phones. So what is it good for? Why is this low-power, long-life tech considered so valuable?
It solves the tyranny of maintenance, especially in remote or inaccessible places. That's the key. Think about sensors.
Like on pipelines or underwater.
Exactly. Oil and gas pipelines stretching thousands of miles, deep-sea exploration equipment, sensors monitoring remote mountain ranges or volcanoes. Getting a person out there just to change a battery is incredibly expensive, sometimes dangerous, sometimes impossible.
Tens of thousands of dollars for a single battery swap, potentially?
Easily. If your sensor's battery lasts 50 years instead of, say, 2, you eliminate decades of that cost and logistical hassle. It becomes install and forget.
That makes perfect sense for industrial uses. What else?
Space, definitely.
Yeah.
Small satellites, CubeSats, things that need to operate for years without any chance of servicing. And of course, the medical field.
Yes, implants. Pacemakers, neurostimulators, things where battery replacement currently means more surgery for the patient.
Imagine eliminating that need for the rest of a patient's life. That's a profound improvement in quality of care. It moves from inconvenient maintenance to permanent operation.
And the market potential for all this.
Yep.
You mentioned the Internet of Things, IoT.
Right. The sheer number of connected devices is exploding. Projections talk about, over 40 billion IoT devices globally by 2030. If these nuclear batteries capture even a tiny fraction, say 1% of that market.
You're looking at potentially billions of dollars.
In a multi-billion-dollar niche, absolutely. And the hope or expectation is that as demand grows and manufacturing scales up, the cost of producing the necessary isotopes like that nickel-63 Russia used or carbon-14 will eventually come down.
Making it viable for more applications over time.
That's the idea, fueling expansion beyond just the highest value, most critical uses today.
Okay, but before we get carried away with the potential, let's touch on the roadblocks again. Besides the regulatory hurdles we discussed, what else is keeping these from being everywhere tomorrow?
Well, cost is still a major factor, especially for isotopes like nickel-63. Producing them in sufficient purity and quantity isn't cheap right now.
And the power limitation is fundamental, isn't it?
It absolutely is. We have to keep stressing that. For the foreseeable future, these are not replacements for the batteries in your electric car or your smartphone. The power density just isn't there yet.
So realistically, we're looking at industrial, medical, defense, specialized sectors for now.
That seems to be the consensus from the sources, yes. High-value, low-power, long-life applications.
Which brings us, inevitably, to the military angle. This is where the sources get quite provocative, talking about drones and munitions.
This is where the combination of small size and extreme longevity could genuinely shift paradigms. Think about modern drones, UAVs. They're cheap, effective, but their Achilles heel is battery life.
Constant recharging, battery degradation and storage, the whole logistics train needed to support them.
It's a massive burden. Now imagine replacing those standard lithium batteries with these 50-year nuclear ones.
Okay, what does that enable?
It enables a new class of military hardware. Think smart munitions, network sensors, reconnaissance drones that can be manufactured, stored in a warehouse for, say, 20 or 30 years.
And be instantly ready to deploy. No charging needed.
Exactly. Always at 100% power, zero battery maintenance for decades. The sources paint a picture of potentially millions of drones warehoused, perpetually ready for flight. That completely changes the logistics of drone warfare.
It removes the energy bottleneck entirely. And that has huge strategic implications, doesn't it? The sources called it a strategic weapon that never runs out.
It really reframes deterrence. A nation with this capability, especially if they mass-produce these drones, gains a persistent, instantly available threat capability.
And it might empower smaller nations, too, giving them a long-term deterrent without needing constant upkeep.
Potentially, yes. If you can afford to stockpile thousands of these always-on drones over decades, you create a significant defensive or even offensive capability that larger powers would have to constantly account for.
Forcing massive investment in countermeasures, like air defense systems that have to be perpetually active against a threat that never degrades in storage.
It creates a fundamental asymmetry based purely on solving the energy storage and maintenance problem. It's a powerful force multiplier.
So wrapping this up, the takeaway here for you, the listener, isn't just about a new battery technology. It's really about how controlling permanent precision energy could reshape global power dynamics.
All right. China seems to have grasped this early, pushing into production. The U.S. has the tech capability, but faces hurdles getting it to market at scale. Russia holds some impressive science, but isn't really in the commercial game right now.
This is a race for who controls the energy source for potentially decades of unattended operation in critical systems.
And that leads us to a final thought, something for you to consider. If national power, as some suggest, might increasingly depend on who owns the energy that never ends, what does that truly unlock?
What infrastructure, previously limited by maintenance or access, suddenly becomes viable for century-long operation?
Think about it. Deep-sea surveillance networks, monitoring cables, persistent sensor grids in the Arctic, constellations of small satellites providing constant oversight, maybe even infrastructure buried deep underground, all powered for decades without human touch.
Who controls that network? And how does that continuous, unattended presence shift global monitoring, control, and access to information?
That's the deeper strategic question this tiny coin battery forces us to ask. The implications go far beyond just a longer-lasting sensor.